Hello and welcome back to Maya's Reviews, a book podcast and blog. If you're new here, welcome and I hope you stick around. I promise I'll at least try to make it worth your time. So before I get started today on my review, I have a few announcements. I realized that even though I've had my blog for a year, I never really introduced myself as a person. I'm just kind of this blog that posts things. So and then I was thinking, like, I've never introduced myself as a person on the podcast either, and I'm just gonna go on being this voice to everyone. So I was thinking I might as well do a Q&A. So I created a Google form where you can submit questions that you want to ask me. I also have a question on there about whether you want your name to be featured in the episode. So that way, if you don't want me to say your name when I read off your question or questions, you don't have to have your name in the episode. So if you want to ask me questions for a Q&A episode, which I'll probably also type up as well, so it's available on my blog, then fill out that form, which is available. It's the first link on my link tree at the moment, but I will also put it in the description so it's easily accessible. And I don't really have a set day or time when I want to post that. It really depends on how many questions I get and how long it takes me to get questions, but I'm definitely planning on doing that. So definitely look out for that. And tomorrow I'm posting both a review and an episode of my review of A Flight of Broken Wings by Nupur Chowdhury, which I really hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, so hopefully I am. And then if you haven't already, check out my review from today of Shaky's Madness by Robert Boog, because I've uploaded that earlier today. So, and then next week, I only have one episode that I'm going to be doing, but I'm also doing two reviews. So next week, I'm going to be reviewing Weapons of Remorse by Chevron Ross and A Corner of the Universe by Anne Martin. And then Friday, so those two will be posted on Tuesday and Thursday. And then Friday, I will be uploading an episode of my friend Mackie and I reviewing A Corner of the Universe. It was a book that we both read when we were younger, and we read it together, so I gotta read it again, and then next week I'll be reviewing it, and we'll be talking about it together. So I have no idea how long that episode is gonna be. It could very well be 8 minutes, or it could be half an hour. I mean, I have no idea, genuinely, but I already talk a lot on my own, so with another person there, I don't know how long it's gonna take. We'll see. But I'm hoping next week that I can upload that. So that's what I have for this week and next week. I have the rest of my plans for July and early August posted in my July to be read post, which you can view that on my blog. So check that out if you haven't already. And for updates about the Q&A episode, follow me on either or both Twitter and TikTok at Maya the Bookworm. That way you can get updates whenever with whatever's going on with that, or just whenever I post. And definitely follow me on my blog as well, because I'll definitely be posting about that as well. So I think that's all I have for announcements today. This is the second time I've recorded this because my mic was not connected correctly. So the program I use was using the crappy built-in laptop microphone instead of the one I actually bought, so that was nice. I was already like 9 minutes in, and then it was like, oh, I wasn't recording correctly. That's nice. So I'm a pro at this intro for today. But without further ado, today I'm doing a review I'm really excited for. It was a review I was excited for when I first reviewed this novel. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars and E.K. Johnston's novels, so I was super excited when I was able to receive an arc of Queen's Peril, which is a novel about Padme before and during The Phantom Menace. So if you're not well versed in Star Wars or even interested in it, maybe this episode isn't for you, but I thought it was important to review since, I love this book and I love Star Wars, so this was like a dream come true. And this was early on in my blog days too, so it'll be interesting to see what I remember. So yeah, today I'm going to be reviewing Queen's Peril by E.K. Johnston. And before I really get started, I want to thank Disney, Lucasfilm Press, and NetGalley for providing me with an arc of this novel in exchange for an honest review. Just a heads up, there are going to be spoilers for The Phantom Menace and Star Wars and the novel in this episode, so keep that in mind. I rated Queen's Peril 4.5 out of 5 stars overall. The plot, 3 out of 5 stars, setting, 5 out of 5, characters, 4 out of 5, and then both the writing and memorability I rated 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved Queen's Peril by E.K. Johnston and cannot wait to see other Star Wars novels that E.K. Johnston will release in the future. However, fans and our readers who have not watched The Phantom Menace will most likely be confused in the second half of the novel. Queen's Peril was published by Disney Lucasfilm Press on June 2nd, 2020 at 276 pages, and it is a Star Wars novel, so it's a science fiction novel. And like I said earlier, I would recommend reading Queen's Peril only if you have watched the Star Wars movies and at least The Phantom Menace. At the very least, the first half of the novel is focused entirely on Padme becoming queen and how she acted thereafter. Halfway through the novel, however, it does start overlapping with the events in The Phantom Menace, so watching the movie before reading Queen's Peril is definitely a good idea. Otherwise, you're really not going to know what's going on. Or you will, but it's probably better to watch the movie first. And even if you have watched the movie already, maybe rewatch it so you can remember what's going on. Because it's from her point of view, so. The book's description from Goodreads: when 14-year-old Padme Naberrie wins the election for Queen of Naboo, she adopts the name Amidala and leaves her family to rule from the royal palace. To keep her safe and secure, she'll need a group of skilled handmaidens who can be her assistants, confidants, and defenders, and decoys. Each girl is selected for her particular talents, but it will be up to Padme to unite them as a group. When Naboo is invaded by forces of the Trade Federation, Queen Amidala and her handmaidens will face the greatest test of themselves and of each other. So, like the book's description says, it's about Padme Amidala, which, love her. It really dives into her relationship between her handmaidens, because in The Phantom Menace you see them and you know that, and even in Attack of the Clones, which I don't know if I said this earlier, but if you're not really into Star Wars or haven't watched the movies, you might want to skip this episode because it's just going to be me talking about Star Wars the whole time. So, but it's really interesting, this novel, because it dives into her relationship with her handmaidens, which we don't really get to see other than the very surface of it in Phantom Menace. So that honestly, that's probably the best aspect of this novel, is that it's, you know the story somewhat, like you're familiar with Padme and the events of Phantom Menace, but it also adds a new aspect to it. So, Queen's Peril has multiple points of view throughout the novel. These include Padme, obviously, her handmaidens, which I forgot the names because there's so many, but I'll get to that later. Padme's parents, Captain Quarsh Panaka and his wife Marique, Senator Palpatine, Jar Jar Binks, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, Darth Maul, Darth Sidious, etc. There's a lot of point of views. However, the main character, Queen Padme Amidala Neberi, is amazing. Obviously, if you're a Star Wars fan, you most likely know about how incredible and powerful Padme is. If you don't, well, let me just say that Padme is a strong, empowering, protective, compassionate, and selfless person. I think we should just appreciate that Padme literally became the Queen of Naboo at the age of 14, and she rocked at it. Like, me at 14, absolutely not. Naboo would have been in flames. But seriously, she's amazing. She's probably one of my favorite female characters in Star Wars. Her love for Naboo is unparalleled, and that love for her home planet fuels her to solve all of its problems, or at least try to anyways. I can't express enough how strong and powerful she really is. But I grew up watching her in Star Wars episodes 1 through 3, so it was really amazing to see how she became a queen and what she did in her new position immediately after. Because in Phantom Menace, she already is queen. You know, you automatically see her and she's already a queen, so you don't really get how she got there. I mean, you know, because she's like 14 and she's queen, so obviously she did something right, but there's not really a whole lot of background into that, but this novel delves into that. Interested in starting a podcast? I bet you haven't heard of Anchor, an app and site that makes it super easy to create your own. Not only is it free, but Anchor also allows you to make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Anchor distributes your podcast for you to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more platforms. Anchor has creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and computer. It's everything you need all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM to get started today. An issue that I had with the characters was that there are so many in Queen's Peril. I mean, there's a lot in Star Wars, obviously, too, but we hardly get any information about them, so pretty much the other characters beside Padme are in the novel purely because they were in the movies, which, I mean, it's Star Wars, so it makes sense, but even Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Anakin Skywalker do not get any huge recognition or parts in the novel, even though in Phantom Menace they are a huge part of the movie and its ending, so it was definitely interesting, the path the author took to tell Padme's story in the Phantom Menace, but I definitely think the other characters could have played a much bigger part in the novel. I mean, considering that Anakin Skywalker was the entire reason they won the Battle of Naboo, I find it odd that him winning the war for Padme isn't even mentioned. So, but many parts in the Phantom Menace were skipped over in Queen's Peril, which I'll talk about later. At least that's what my review from a year ago says, so we're gonna trust it, guys. And then personally, it was hard for me to keep all the handmaidens straight, especially because all of their names are literally similar. Like, there's maybe one letter difference between all of them. I mean, probably gonna get hate for that. Sorry, I just yawned. I'm tired. Probably gonna get hate for that. Like, you're not a real Star Wars fan. You don't know all the handmaidens' names, but I barely remember things from my own life, so it's not that surprising. But I guess their plan was to make it hard to distinguish who was who for the safety of Padme, but still, I constantly had to go back to the page where the girls decide what their new names are going to be so I could understand who was who throughout the book. I mean, it was inconvenient for the reader, but I guess their plans actually worked, so, I mean... Anyways, I loved how there was more attention on the handmaidens than there was in the movie, especially because it seems like they were a huge part of Padme's protection and life as a queen, so... Oh, I should mention that there is LGBTQ rep in the novel, which I loved, as there is very little representation in the Star Wars universe. Sabe falls in love with the daughter of a neighboring planet's ruler, and Yana and Sache confess their love for each other before the battle on Naboo, which I was like, yay, okay. So, but overall, the character building was good, just not perfect. I mean, there was a lot that was imperfect about it, but I did appreciate how it focused on Padme, since this is her novel, so... And the writing, I had no issues with the writing. I mean, E.K. Johnston is amazing and described everything perfectly. I had a very clear understanding of what was going on throughout the book, which probably also had to do with the fact that I have watched The Phantom Menace and kind of know what happens, so that definitely played a part in it, but E.K. Johnston is amazing. So, and then the setting in Queen's Peril is amazing. I mean, it's Star Wars. The world building is amazing throughout, so but every planet mentioned was described to some amount of detail, so even the ones that weren't necessarily important to the plot. The entire novel is about Padme doing what she can for Naboo, her home planet, so I'd say that the setting definitely affected Padme and her choices. I mean, we learn a lot more about Naboo than we do in The Phantom Menace, which I greatly appreciated. I mean, my pet peeve is when you have, like, a novel that kind of segues off of a movie series. So, like, you have a Star Wars novel that goes off and it takes place during one of the movies, and then all of your information comes directly from the movies. There's nothing new. It's like, I might as well have not read the book. This is not the case with Queen's Peril, which was really nice. Not only do we learn about Naboo's politics, but we also learn about what it's doing throughout the galaxy and what it's known for, what the citizens do for a living, and how involved Naboo is with other planets in its sector. And while not everyone might find this information interesting, it was nice to learn more about Naboo and how it made its mark on Padme, since, like I said, a lot of that isn't really discussed throughout the novel, because Padme isn't the main character. I mean, she is a really important character, but she's not the main one, so... The major issue with Queen's Peril, however, does lie with the plot. I feel like E.K. Johnston tried to pack too much into one novel, which ended in leaving key details and events out. As I mentioned before, Queen's Peril takes place before and during The Phantom Menace, which, depending on how you look on it, could be episode 1 of Star Wars, or it could be episode, 4 of Star Wars? Because if you're counting New Hope as the first episode, I don't know math. Anyways, I can't count, okay. The beginning of the novel was the perfect pace for me and all made sense. However, once you get to the second half of the novel, which is where it overlaps with The Phantom Menace, it's really hard to keep track of what is happening, even if you have watched the movie. So many events and information is left out during the second half of the book that I constantly had to refer back to my knowledge of The Phantom Menace to understand what was happening. So, for example, all in one chapter, we see Padme get captured by the Trade Federation, then all of a sudden she's in space with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, then they're stranded on Tatooine, and all of a sudden they're at Coruscant. I mean... And then, not a chapter later, they're back on Naboo. The next chapter, they've won the battle, but Qui-Gon's dead, spoiler, so they have to host a funeral for him. I mean, there's no mention of how Padme escapes the Trade Federation, why she's stranded on or gets off Naboo, why Anakin is at Coruscant in the battle with them, how they win the war, even how Qui-Gon dies. I mean, there's so many places where critical information is missing that it was slightly confusing to read, even though I've watched the movie a bunch of times. Don't ask me why, but I have, and knew what was supposed to be happening. I mean, it was just little gaps and holes that the author left, which kind of smart if you want people to go watch The Phantom Menace, but those tiny gaps made the story a little bit inconsistent, I felt. I mean, it would have been much better for the novel to kind of recreate The Phantom Menace, but have it from Padme's point of view. I mean, you don't have to have, like, word for word the dialogue, but even just a brief overview of what happened would have been nice, because you don't really get insight into what Padme is thinking during that time. So it would have been kind of nice to see, but so many other, I mean, but other than that too, I also really liked how the author added more than what we know from The Phantom Menace into the novel. So, but I was able to overlook the fact that major events were missed, and the first half of the novel was perfection. It was really just the second half that was kind of missing a little bit. But overall, I really enjoyed Queen's Peril by E.K. Johnston, but would recommend that the reader be very familiar with The Phantom Menace and Star Wars in general before reading. Otherwise, you're most likely going to be very confused just overall, and especially with the second half of the novel. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, it was such a great novel, and I was so excited to receive it early. I mean, I got it before it came out, and I was able to read it, and I was so excited about it, and I still am. I mean, it was an excellent novel, and despite what it lacks, it makes up for that in what it adds to Star Wars and to Padme's story. So I really, really enjoyed this novel, and I really think if you like Star Wars as much as I do, and you like Padme as much as I do, I definitely think you will enjoy this novel as well. So that is the end of my review of Queen's Peril by E.K. Johnston. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please check out my blog, Maya's Reviews, at mayagreviews.wordpress.com. You can also find me at Maya the Bookworm on Twitter, Goodreads, TikTok, BookBub, and Book Sirens. I'm also on Tumblr at Maya Reviews. If you want me to review your book, or even just want to reach out to me, you can email me at mayagbookreviews@gmail.com. I do ask that if you are reaching out in regards to a review request or anything business related, that you check out my review policy on my blog first and then email me. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want to be a part of the Q&A episode, which please do, I would love to read questions from you and answer them. Please check out the Google form that I've linked below in the description, and check out other information on my blog about it. I mean, there's a lot, and so check that out if you want to be involved in that. I'll definitely keep you posted on Twitter, most likely. TikTok takes a little bit more effort, but I'm definitely gonna be sharing a lot of updates in the status of that. So if you haven't already, follow me on my blog, follow me on Twitter, follow me on TikTok. I'll be updating a lot about that episode. I'm thinking I want to go live on TikTok soon, and we can talk about books. I mean, we can talk about anything, to be honest. We can talk about the new Loki episode. So if you want to participate in that, go ahead. And also, oh my gosh, wait, no, now that I'm thinking about it, so on Anchor, like, if you're listening to this on Spotify, there should be a link at the bottom. Or, like, if you're listening to this anywhere besides the Anchor site, there should be a link at the bottom with voice message. If you click there, you can record a question and send it in to me. So, if you would rather do that besides the questionnaire or Google form, go ahead and do that. And I'll add that to the Google form too, which by the time this comes out, it'll probably already be there. But if you want to ask me a question, you can either do that on the Google form or with voice messages. And I can actually insert your voice into the episode. So if you're interested in that and you want to have your voice inserted into the episode. I mean, how cool is that? Definitely check that out. And I will put that link that link should be there anyways. Thank you for listening and happy reading. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and bye!